where she talks. Get your life together, girl. I think I like this little life. Hello, welcome back. Today I'm back from a little YouTube hiatus, and I thought what a great way to start than to talk about all of the books that I read in April of 2025. And if you are new here, will let you know how this goes. I'm going to go over a few of my statistics. I use the story graph to get all of my reading stats. I'm still learning how to use this platform, so bear with a girl. And then we'll go through and talk a little bit, very short reviews about all of the books that I read and my thoughts on them. And lastly, if this is not the longest video of all time, I will talk a little bit about my TBR. Let's get into it. So in April, I read 13 books, and it took me about an average of 3 days to read each book. I don't know, but like, I just can't get the statistic to be any better than that. And do I really need it to? You know what I mean? Like, it is just the competitive side of me that wants it to be better, but it doesn't really need to be. I gotta sometimes be nicer to myself. My most prevalent reading moods were dark, tense, and emotional. And I don't know why, but that keeps being the case even when my highest genres are other things like romance and not mysteries and thrillers, even though I do read mostly in a lot of mysteries and thrillers. I've been kind of on a different vibe this year than I usually am. This month, my most read genres were actually first thriller, romance, and then mystery, and then contemporary. And again, I don't usually read contemporary, so that surprises me, but I think that what the story graph is doing is counting contemporary romances, because that is, for example, I read the new Emily Henry book, and her books are usually contemporary romances, so I'm wondering if that's contributing to this. No surprise here, I mostly read medium-paced books. About 60% of the books I read were medium-paced, and the rest were fast-paced. I don't really like slow-paced books. It is what it is. Most of the books that I read were between 300 and 499 pages. I'm at the point in my physical TBR where I'm so close to finishing it, and all of the books, if not most of them, I meant to say most of them, if not all of them, but most of them are pretty chunky books that I've been putting off because they intimidate and scare me. So I feel that this is just going to be a trend for next month, probably, is that most of the books I read are going to be chunkier books. Who knows? I read all fiction books this month. I'm not doing very well with keeping up with my goal of reading one nonfiction a month. I have read parts of a nonfiction book, but I didn't finish any of them in this month. So yeah, that's the tea. And then formatting wise, your girl's getting a little more diverse. I read 38% digital books and 38% audiobooks and 23% print books. And I think most of that is the fact that I haven't really had too much time to sit and read like I used to, and so I've been doing much more audio, and I started to notice I was doing a lot of audio, so then I started downloading some books on my Kindle and reading those, and somehow we abandoned the physical books. I am becoming a Kindle girly, I can't lie about it. However, I don't think that I will ever say that anything is better than my physical books. Like, that's just like my bread and butter. And we did pretty good with the star ratings. My average rating this month was 3.75, which I think is pretty decent. I'm trying to get it to 3.9, and we're improving because last year it ended at 3.4 for 2024. So we're getting there slowly but surely. And that's all for stats. So let's get into these books that I read. Okay, so the first book I read was Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. I'm slowly but surely making my way through this series. And this one I ended up giving 4.25 stars. I needed and was so grateful that this book was shorter than the one prior to this, which was The Order of the Phoenix, because that one took me 3,000 years to finish, and I just needed something that was quick. I mean, these are middle grade, so they are quick to read, but when they have almost 900 pages, still gonna take you a long time. That being said, the shortness really helped me to kind of enjoy the book a little bit more because I needed to breathe. This one was a little bit less eventful, I will say, than the previous ones. This one was a little more mundane, and somehow I still enjoyed it, but I think that's why I can give it 5 stars. There were a lot of things here that surprised me, and there were also some things that I remembered from the movies, which is why I always like to read the books before the movies. I don't remember too much about the movies, but I remembered a pretty big plot point in this one, so womp. I wonder if that contributed to my star rating, but I'm not sure. Then I read Leather and Lark by Brynne Weaver. This book is the second in the Ruinous Love series. Essentially, the Ruinous Love series is a 3-book series. I actually also read book 3, which was Scythe and Sparrow, this month. Each of the books follows one of 3 brothers, and they're all serial unalivers or serial unaliver adjacent, and this is just like unalivers falling in love with each other. They are really funny. However, I progressively liked the books less and less as I got through the series. So whereas I gave the first book 4 stars because I thought it was really hilarious, I gave the second and third book 3 stars. I just didn't think it was as like laugh out loud funny as the first one, and I found myself kind of like disengaging throughout the books, so that's unfortunate, but I do still think that this was a pretty interesting and very different read. Then I read The God in the Woods. This is essentially about a bunch of rich kids who go to summer camp, and one year a girl goes missing, and we are kind of getting the backstory of her family and how her brother also went missing many years ago, and you are getting the pieces put together between the brother Bear's story and her story and all of the shady rich people things that are going on. And honestly, I thought this book was way too long for what it was. I was underwhelmed by the reveal. Some of parts of it were interesting, but overall I just don't understand the hype. I think this was like a good book, but not a great one. It was like pretty run of the mill. I gave it 3 stars. Then I read Hidden Pictures, and this was a book I read in Turks and Caicos with my friend Jeanette. So if you want to hear more about that, you should check out that vlog. Essentially, this book is about a woman who is given a second chance in life and is hired as the nanny for a pretty well-off family. She's a live-in nanny, and so she starts to discover that the small child that she is taking care of is drawing these pictures that, one, are becoming more and more sinister and potentially describing a sinister act, an event that took place, and secondly, his drawing skills are getting progressively better, which is spooky and scary. I gave this 3.7 stars. I really liked the atmosphere of this book, maybe more so than any of the like reveals and actual events, but the author does a really good job in the writing of this book, and that's why I gave it such a high rating. Then I read a novel love story. I don't know why I said that like that. This is about a girl who is just, she was supposed to take this like yearly retreat with her friends, and she's excited about it because normally she doesn't do a lot of socializing, and all of her friends cancel, so she decides to go on the retreat by herself. However, she somehow finds herself lost in this little town, which turns out to be the town where her favorite book takes place, and she's surrounded by the characters in the book and she's confused. And I did really enjoy this book, but it felt like something was missing. I gave it 3.25 stars. I felt like the characters were cute. It was like this like homey small town vibe. I like that Ashley Poston always has some kind of fantastical element to the book, but nothing like really stood out to me about it. So 3.25 it is. Then I read The Naturals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, and I actually ended up reading 3 books in this series back to back to back. I talk about them a lot in my Turks video as well, so make sure you check that out if you want to know more. The Naturals is a series of teenagers who have a natural ability to do some like profiling, lie detecting, and things like that. Things that would be very attractive to the FBI. And so they get recruited as part of the Naturals program to help the FBI solve cold cases, except that these cases kind of run into their real lives and they get all tangled up. I gave the first book, The Naturals, 3.75 stars, but I just felt like it was interesting, it was fast-paced, it was just like kept you turning pages. And then when I got to the second book, Killer Instinct, I felt like it was just so much more engaging because you're getting a lot more of the story of this character named Dean, whose dad is a serial unaliver, and that story was just so much more like interesting and thrilling and like on the edge of your seat because you're more invested in the story of the character and the crimes related to them. So I gave that one 4 stars. And then All In, which is the third book, we get some elements that I love in books, and I don't want to say it because I don't want to spoil anything, but I give this book 4.75 stars. It was like almost perfect. It's just that they do this thing in these games where they play, not in these games, in these books, they do these things where they play these games like Never Have I Ever, and they're just pretty childish. I mean, granted, this is a young adult book, which is supposed to be ages 12 to 18. So I could see a 12-year-old enjoying this. I just didn't. And that's okay. It was still 4.75 stars. Like, I was on the edge of my flippin' seat the whole time. And granted, I read 3 books in this series in one vacation, which was like 4 days or 5 days long. Just crazy. It's crazy town. Then I read Summer in the City by Alex Aster and immediately went and got this Walmart edition with the yellow sprayed edges. Ah! I gave this 5 stars, y'all. Okay. This is about a girl named Alex, and she's kind of, how to explain? She makes out with this dude. He ends up being kind of a butt wife, and she leaves the city, but she finds herself having to come back because she needs to write this screenplay and use specific places in the city in order to, like, they have to be featured in the movie because they've already rented these places out. And I love that this is a romance book, but it still has like a map. How cute is that? So anyways, this is a very New York book, and as a New Yorker, I kind of loved that. She then encounters the dude that she made out with, and it's kind of an enemies to lovers type situation. They make a deal where she pretends to date him, so it's also fake dating, while he helps her explore the city. And I just, like, I don't know how to explain it. There was a piece in this book that I really related to, and it's just something that she described that I had never heard of before, that I also feel that I deal with in my life, to put it nicely. And it just made me feel really seen and understood. It helped me understand myself too. So I don't know if that made me biased towards this book, but did enjoy that experience. Otherwise, I did think that it was like a little silly, funny, quirky. I liked the characters. I liked their relationship. I was kicking my feet for reading this romance book. Afterwards, I did watch a video that was like critiquing some of the aspects of the book, and I was like, oh, you're not wrong about that. But I refused to change my 5-star rating because I was literally squealing when I read this. So I'm gonna stick to my guns. Then I read The Perfect Divorce. This is book 2 to The Perfect Marriage, where we follow Sarah and her husband who encounter this crime, and her husband is... Why are words not coming to me today? Basically, Sarah's defending her husband because he is a possible suspect. Why can't I talk? And we're just kind of going through their lives, trying to figure out what happened, who did this. And in the second book, we are following the aftermath of this couple, and Sarah is now remarried and going through a divorce, thus the perfect divorce, and things are just not quite what they seem in her life once again. So that's the tea. I gave this 3.75 stars. This is one of those books, like, it's short, it's a quick read, and it's not like it's anything like fantastic, amazing, but for some reason you just get like hooked in and you need to know what happens, and it was a good time. So I feel that it deserves to have a rating that matches that, which is 3.75 stars. If I didn't say that, I think I did. Then I read Hera. This is by Jennifer Saint, who is the author of one of my favorite books of all time, which is Ariadne. And I love Jennifer Saint's writing, but this one did not hit. I think it was a good book and the writing was good, but I think my expectations were so high, and they are every time I read Jennifer Saint, because she wrote one of my favorite books of all time, that it always falls short of that. It's almost like we can never get another Ariadne ever again. But this one follows Hera, who is the wife and sister of Zeus, the king of the gods, and she just constantly lives under his shadow, and she is trying to take back her power as a woman and going through just like those feelings of feeling that you deserve more and trying to reclaim her power as a woman, as the queen of the gods, etc., etc. I don't think she does a good job in terms of like feminism in this book. I feel like Hera comes off as this, like, she's scrambling for power and not really getting it. And I'm not gonna say anything about like the ending or any of that, so I'll stop talking about that there. But overall, it just doesn't do a good job of making Hera seem like this like empowered figure throughout the book. So that's why it just didn't like really hit, but it was still well written. So 3.5 stars, I think, is a good rating. I think I like this little life. Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry is the last book that I read this month. I gave it 3.5 stars. This is a book essentially about a girl named Alice Scott, who is a journalist, and she is invited over to the home of Margaret Ives, who is this really famous woman who comes from a really famous family. They're very notorious. There's a lot of mystery surrounding their life story, and she and another writer named Hayden get invited to Margaret's house to compete to write her life story. And Margaret's kind of giving each of them certain pieces, but they're both not getting the full story, just to see who she will choose to write Margaret's book at the end. I was underwhelmed. I think I was so excited for this book. I heard it was like a mystery thriller romance, and so I had really high expectations because I love everything Emily Henry writes, and I did think that the writing here was pretty good. However, I just felt like this story fell short. The romance was a little flat for me. It just kind of didn't convince me the way I thought it would, and the like mysterious elements of the book just were not it. Think, Emily, my friend, I love you dearly. Let's stick to the contemporary romances, please. Thank you. Love you so much. Like, I'll read everything you write. Promise. So that was it for all of the books that I read. I thought I would give you a little sneak peek of my TBR for May. I am hoping to finish my physical TBR. Fingers crossed. Okay, so this is all of the books that I have left on my physical TBR. And I'm not gonna lie to you, most of these I don't know what they're about because I got them in book subscription boxes, but that's okay. I have the final book in the Harry Potter series, The Deathly Hallows, and I'm most of the way through this already, so it feels like this one will definitely get read. Then I have Where Shadows Meet by Patrice Caldwell. I have no idea what this book is about. No clue. Then I have This Monster of Mine by Shalini Abeyasekara, and I also have no clue what this book is about, but it is very pretty. And I have Gifted and Talented by Olivia Blake, and this book I think is about some pictures. That's fancy. Wow, I'm so excited. Anyways, this book I've actually started. It is about a family who makes a lot of money, and they also have some kind of ties to magic, and that is honestly the worst description I've ever given, but I don't know how to explain it anymore. I wasn't really enjoying the book when I started reading it on my Kindle, but I do want to give it a second try because I think Olivia Blake's books, the thing about her writing is that it is just, I feel like sometimes I'm not smart enough to understand them, but I do end up enjoying the actual story in the end, and this one's like pretty chunky, so I want to give it a little bit more of a try before I give up on it. Then I have The Glittering Edge by Alyssa Vijay, but I don't know how to say that. This is, I think, a romantasy book. I don't know the description of this either, and I'm so embarrassed. But this is the final book subscription book that I didn't pick that I have on this list. I have 2 more books that are on the way that haven't arrived yet, which is Silver Elite, and that is a, I think, like dystopian sci-fi fantasy-ish book a lot of people are talking about. It's very hit or miss right now, whether people are giving it good ratings or not, but I'm hoping that I will enjoy it. And I'm not gonna lie, I at first was gonna skip this month on Book of the Month, but I was having FOMO, people talking about this book, so now I have to read it, of course. Hello. And while I was at it, I might as well have added Man of Smoke by Alex North. So that's the physical TBR. I do have one other book, but it's just such a chunky monkey that I don't think I'm going to include it in my May TBR. It's just not realistic. But those 7 books, I think I can do it. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for still being here, even though I took a little break. I hope you enjoyed this. If you made it this far, leave me a moon emoji. If you enjoyed this, hit that like button. If you want to join the family, make sure you hit that subscribe button. I will see you all when I see you next. Bye.